Okay, so this was my first attempt at doing a hydroponics garden. Basically trying to get tomatoes to grow out here in Arizona. In fact, it's about 100 degrees out here right now. Basically, I've got 40% shade, and I want to show you how to make these buckets. So I'll show you how the plumbing's done, show you how to make the buckets, and what all is involved in getting something to grow in hydroponics. Alright, give you a quick overview on how I'm doing this. So pretty much it's just a matter of water in, water out, and feed the plants. Alright, so this is basically my setup, starting from this end going down this way. And don't let this here scare you, because I thought I was going to meter the water to each plant. Epic fail. The water just plugs up because of all the pieces parts inside the water. Just get some nozzles. And I just devised a different system that's a lot simpler and a lot less apt to plug up. And I'll be showing you all this as we build the next part of this that I'm going to add on to. So this is my modification to all those little hoses. And basically, instead of pumping the water to those hoses, I'm just pumping it to this pipe, and there's a little hole back here in the bottom of this, and it just puts water on top of the dirt in each one of them. Alright, so looking at it from the other side, this blue pipe right here has a fountain pump on the bottom of it sitting in this big box. Basically, I picked it up at Home Depot, 20 bucks, and that's where I keep my water in and all the chemicals for feeding the plants. So that pumps up into this pipe right here and drips down on top of all the plants all the way down the row. The water comes out, these guys here, drains into this, goes right back into the bucket. It is that simple. Now there's a little bit of stuff that's going on inside the buckets that I'll show you to help from keeping dirt and stuff inside from staying in the bucket instead of going into the big box. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. 5-gallon bucket, Home Depot, $6. And basically I'm going to drill a hole 2 inches up, and I've got a small piece of 2-inch, half-inch tubing, basically a piece of 2-inch PVC that I cut 2 inches long, 2 90s, and these little rubber grommets that I got online. They're 1-inch grommets, and literally if you Google 1-inch grommets, that's what you find. Just bought them through Amazon. This guy fits in there, and that seals the hole once you drill the hole in here, and that way the water doesn't just pour out, because sometimes it'll fill up to here and drain all the way back down to this level again. So the water is at least at the bottom of the media when we put it in. You'll see that later. And it just seeps up and takes as much water as it needs. And that way you don't overwater your plants or underwater them. So first thing I'm going to do is drill a hole. I like this drill bit because it makes a nice clean hole rather than the ones that have the teeth in the hole in it, and then you have to poke out the plastic, and this just makes a great hole. And because Home Depot happened to put their line at the bottom of their logo right at 2 inches, that works out perfect for me, so I don't have to mark it. So it comes out. Pull out the hole a little bit. The rubber grommet's a little bit rough to get in there. It's got a split right in and right there, and then you have to finagle this split into the hole. And it's such a hassle, it takes a little bit of time. I may have to cut and come back to when I get it done, because it's a tight fit, but it does keep it from leaking. And usually you have to get your hand on the inside to help work the lip back around in order to get it to go. There we go, that wasn't too bad. So there he is. And I'm going to take this guy here, got a bit of my drinking water, Move it up a little bit so he slides easily. And you just stick him in the hole like that. Now, since this isn't really under pressure, I don't even use PVC glue. I just take them, stick them on there, and I'll show it to you in a second. So he's stuck on there, and then you want to turn it till he's face down toward the bottom of the bucket. That way, when it picks up the water, it doesn't pick up any floaties, it just picks it up from the bottom of the bucket, and that keeps from getting pieces of debris and dirt and stuff back into the water system. So when you keep watering, you end up plugging up all your filters. Now that you know that he's right at the bottom, you want him pointed straight down. I just push him on there, just like that. And then you've got your drain. Now I'm going to take another small piece of PVC on that later, and I'm going to stick him on the bottom, and he's going to go in a pipe, and that's what drains back down to the other end. So the other thing I got here that's really cool, and I picked these up at Home Depot. What they are is 5-gallon bucket filters for paint. Again, found them at Home Depot. You can probably buy them online. And poke them in the bucket. That'll keep all the dirt contained from getting inside. It's actually not really dirt, it's a growing media. And I'll show you that later too, what we're using for growing media, which is another experiment I'm trying this time. You're going to put your media in there, you put your plant in here, and you just water the media with chemical filled water. And a couple times a day, and it makes your plants grow wonderfully. I cut away while I drill the rest of the buckets. Alright, so we got those buckets all drilled out and pieces put in. Little bitty tip, a couple of things is, make sure you get this hole at least 2 inches up. Because if you're not careful, you'll get that bottom elbow too close to the bottom. It's just about right, it's fine for me. And again, these bags that I got from Home Depot for basically filtering out paint. We're going to use it to filter out dirt. If you put them on the bucket, the second notch down, this notch right down here, is better, because if you're lucky enough to find what I accidentally found, is these guys here to go in the bucket for the plants. You got to figure out a way to fasten it to the bucket. Well, it just turned out that that bottom ring is exactly the right size to go right around the rim and snap on that bucket. And by putting this down one more notch, you're not going to be halfway snapped on the material there. And this guy just goes on here, and you force it in and push it around a little bit. Sometimes you need a screwdriver and snap on the bucket, and you're good to go. So you've got your support so when your plants grow. And I'm going to put him on later because it kind of makes him top heavy. And I'm going to grab the camera and draw out a couple more holes and show you where some things go so that you get a clue and see how this thing is put together. It's actually pretty simple. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is put something in these buckets for the plants to grow in. Now, basically with the hydroponics, you can't use dirt because dirt's organic and it's going to mulch, and that's not hydroponics. What we want to do is be able to control the chemicals that we're feeding the plants. So whatever we put in there for what they call medium is basically something that doesn't already have any nutrients in it, and we're going to feed the plants the nutrients that they need. So there's a couple of things you can use vermiculite, which is basically exploded rocks, very expensive. Something else that I've used with these plants here is called coca, and it's not really coconut shell. It's something they get out of the ocean that they have to rinse the salt on or something like that. It's a little bit more expensive than what I'm going to try this time. It's an experiment. And it's not as expensive as the vermiculite. The stuff I'm going to try this time is actually ground up coconut shells. Comes in a package like this. It's all squished into 2 little blocks. Fairly inexpensive. I think this whole thing here was like 20 bucks. And it's absorbent. Doesn't have any nutrients. Doesn't decompose. So I'm going to give it a shot. Mainly because it was less expensive, and I think it's a better option anyways. And the reason I know it's absorbent is because I put 2 of those blocks in this cooler and filled it full of water. And that's what you end up with. So basically, when you deal with this stuff, because it is coconut ground up, it's very, very pokey. So you want to make sure you use gloves when you deal with it, because it'll stick your fingers. And we're just going to fill the bucket up with this coconut shell all ground up. Hopefully it's going to work for my next experiment. Pretty sure. I don't see any issues with it. I think it's going to wick the water up to the plants just fine. Basically what happens is the plants end up taking as much water as they need, and the rest of it drains out the bottom. So I'm going to get these guys filled up, and I'm going to poke on those little dudes to hold the plants and run some pipes so you can get a good idea of what the thing looks like all finished, and we'll put some plants in. And I'll show you what chemicals that I found online. There's all kinds of stuff you can do your research depending on what you're growing. Tomatoes or carrots, well, I don't know if you want to grow carrots in 5-gallon buckets, but peas, which is my next thing I'll be doing, lettuce, and pretty much the same concept. Okay, so I skipped ahead a little bit. Went ahead and laid these out. I haven't put the dirt in these guys yet. And I go down here to the end because I'm going to just make one go right now. Because I'm not sure if I can grow plants in this coconut yet. So I'm going to test that first. And then make sure that this guy's going to be good to put all the rest of the coconut in. So basically, inside here we have a fountain pump, and he's just going to pump water into this line here, into there. I put a union here so that when I drill holes in the bottom of each one of these guys here, down, 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 all the way down, I can adjust which way the water squirts out. So basically what I do is I take this union loose, and I can turn it this way or this way. The other thing I did was I put a valve here, and then I put a valve on this one. And now I can adjust how much water all the plants get. So that's how the water gets in. Then in the bottom of the bucket, I'm going to drill a hole right here, basically a 1-inch hole, just like these here. He's got a 1-inch hole. So when the water fills up to that bottom of that piece of tubing right there, it drains into this pipe here, comes out, drains back right into this container and fills it back up again. So it just continuously cycles the water, and I got it set up to cycle twice a day for about 15 minutes. Now let me show you what I'm using for a timer. This is the simplest thing too. So basically I plug this guy into one of these guys. It's just a Christmas timer. So when the plug's plugged into here, you set the timer for 15-minute intervals like you would for your Christmas lights to turn them on and off. And basically it'll turn on the water for 15 minutes, turn it off, and then another part of the day it'll turn it on again for 15 minutes, turn it off, and that's it. And the next thing I need to show you is what chemicals we're using, and basically you fill up the container full of that water, and we'll go over some of the chemicals and what I've learned about them and stuff that you can find out on the internet. Okay, so now I'm filling up my reservoir. I've taken this pipe here and I drilled one hole in the bottom of it. Right there. It's about I want to say it's a 3/16 hole. And that way he's going to squirt into the dirt when I turn that valve on, when that pump that's inside there is running. And then it'll leak back out of that pipe and back into the container. Okay, so here we are. Basically get water coming out of this pipe right here. Going out of that drain and draining into the 1.5 inch pipe there. Dripping back into the tap right here. And because the top of this is concaved, it just fills the lid up and goes right back in the hole. So this guy has all the chemicals in it. And every time the water gets down, you fill it up with water and then you go by the chemicals. Here's what I use. These guys right here, I found them online. Not the same as Miracle Grow. Miracle Grow has a different ratio of chemicals than these guys here do. They tell you how much per gallon to put in it right on the package. You mix it in the water when you refill it, and your plants get food. So basically, you put your plant right there, and he gets nothing but food. And every day he gets fed, twice a day. And there it is.